to talk to you a little bit about the changes that we've seen in the country over the last 12 years. We started, and while I talk to you about what has happened in India, let me talk a little bit about my journey as well, as somebody who started a startup when startup was not even a word. The concept of ease of doing business was very different. We started the company in the United States. The first company, Shop Clues, was started in the United States. We set up a subsidiary here in India. I started a second company with my then husband called Droom. That we started in Singapore in 2015. I'm on to my third company, Kindlife. The first one, when we set up the process and we started the subsidiary, it took 4 months to do that. The second one, it took us 2.5 months. This time around, in 2 days, my company was ready to go. The change is real. The change is visible. You also have to understand that as entrepreneurs, we are possibly one of the toughest audience there is and the biggest critics of the government. So when we say that we see the change, I can tell you the change has to be 100 for us to be happy to a point of 50. And I think that's true for students as well. It is a tough audience that's there. We just ended G20, and I heard some of the debaters talk about Sarke Banthi, how does that work for the economy, etc., etc. There are some things that are an extreme moment of pride for us. This was one of them. I saw my father feel incredibly proud for this. I saw me feel incredibly proud for this. And I saw my 14-year-old feel incredibly proud about this. We executed an impeccable G20. Impeccable. I have been part of some of the G20 summits. The conversations were with us as equals. Please know that we grew up in a country where we were always the developing economy. We are not a developing economy anymore. We are ready to make an impact on the country. Today I want to talk a little bit about startups and what is a startup. I'm assuming everybody knows what a startup is. Shark Tank किसने देखा है? बस फिर इन लोगों को तो कुछ बताने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. You're all caught up already. How many of you are ready to pitch at Shark Tank? You are? I'm going to listen to your pitch. I have angel invested in about 30 companies. If it's good, I'll write you a check. Done? Okay. And that's a startup, guys. To have the courage to say, yes, I'm doing something, when nobody else lifts their hands. And we saw that happening in the US. We saw people talking about LinkedIn. We saw people talking about Uber, Tesla. We saw people talking about eBay, Amazon, the biggest impact that had ever been done. We also came back to India and saw the change truly happening, which is one of our first startups that went public. Do you guys know? And I can bet you most of you have used them. They went public in the US in 2008. Make My Trip. किसने use किया Make My Trip? बस. That's it. We came to India, and it's all serendipity, right? We came to India on Chutti. We met the Make My Trip team at a party. And I remember meeting Deep and thinking, भाई इसने तो बहुत अच्छी कंपनी बना ली, इंडिया में बना ली, हम लोग वहाँ कैलिफोर्निया में बैठे हुए काम किए जा रहे हैं. It is possible to do something in India. India is truly changing. And that was it. That was the genesis for us at Shop Clues as well. That was the Praramb, literally. And I can tell you, over the last 15 odd years, I have seen the change happen from year to year, decade to decade, day to day, month to month. When we started, what was happening was that we would go talk to investors, and they all wanted to know why we are not doing this in the US, which has a paying population, versus doing it in India, जहाँ पे 1.3 billion लोग हैं, पर paying capacity बहुत कम है. And within 2 to 3 years, I can tell you that the change that happened was that the 1.3 billion people, and this is especially for the people who were pro-democracy right there, the 1.3 people were not being looked at as a burden, they were being looked at as an opportunity. The same thing that was a problem became a benefit for us. Our pitch at Shop Clues changed exactly the same way. And that was the beginning of the reforms, the beginning of the startup story at India. Firstly, it was possible कि technology से real change आ सकता है. हमें लगा था हम इंडिया आएंगे, company start करेंगे, and it will be like the field hockey stick. It will take us a little bit of teething trouble, and then we'll just take off like that. We landed up being more and more like the Canadian hockey stick, flat, 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 and then it took off. And do you know what is the catalyst? What was one of the biggest reform that made the change possible? Very different generation. But there was a time जब लोग अपने phone पे data on नहीं करते थे क्योंकि data महंगा होता था. Jio was a big one. Jandhan, the Jam Trinity that the government launched. For some of you, that might just be a phrase. For us, that was what built the business. That's what got people online. Today, UPI is being used across the world. When it launched, there were questions about whether it will be successful in any way or form. So reforms that had to be done were very, very, very significant, even before Startup India was announced. That was the biggest thing. For me, this is a moment of extreme pride. I was on the stage, and Prime Minister Modi was listening to me talk about what my aspirations for my country were. And you know, it doesn't matter if you're for the government, you're against the government. That is a sense of huge pride when your words are being listened to by your leadership and when they are ready to take your feedback. Modi ji started this evening, this was a Saturday evening, and we started at about 7 o'clock, and I remember he started by saying कि अगर Saturday शाम को आप लोग 7 बजे मेरा भाषण सुनने आए हैं तो आप लोग एंटरप्रेन्योर्स ही हो सकते हैं. पर मुझे लगता है अगर 7 बजे सैटरडे शाम को 7 बजे आप भाषण सुनने आए तो you are ready to make a change. Now, I saw the enthusiasm when a lot of your speakers came on board today, and I have to tell you, I miss this. I miss the energy of youth, the belief that anything is possible. I also have to say that I was expecting a lot more people to put their hands up and say we have business ideas than just one. Because that's what our country should be about. Startups are important. Businesses are important. And a shout out to all the women in the room. Bhai, thoda sa ideas lao. The time has come. Really anything is possible. You don't have to limit yourself. Unicorns. Does everybody know what a unicorn is? What is it? 1 billion की valuation. बिल्कुल. जब हमने 2011 में शॉप क्लूज शुरू किया था, तब Make My Trip was successful. Flipkart था, and they were all valued at 200, 400 odd million. There was no unicorn in India. And we didn't think, because there's no other unicorn in the country, you don't think that you'll become a unicorn as well. But it happened. 2013, Mu Sigma became a unicorn. Flipkart, InMobi, InfoEdge, Make My Trip, Zoho, Renew, Hike, ShopClues, Paytm, Quicker, Zomato, Ola, Snapdeal. Have you guys used services of most of these companies? So together, the kind of valuation, the kind of impact they've made on our country, can you also see yourself working at these companies? Okay, let me go to the next page. Can you see yourself working at these companies? Yes? अब आप देखें कितने यूनिकॉर्न बन गए हैं. Do you know what the next step to a unicorn is? क्या? Decacorn, किसी ने सुना है? $10 billion. We have multiple companies that are $10 billion companies now. And there are multiple companies out of these that have gone public as well. How many of you invest in the public market? Or at least follow the public market? Delivery? Zomato? Good stock? Not a good stock? Long-term good stock? Can be, no? I think it's a long-term good stock. I've bought into Zomato. I'm pretty proud of it. And look at what happened in 2021 and 22. Guys, मुझे पता है तुम लोग मेरी इंडस्ट्री के नहीं हो. Please, a big hand. Look at the value that was created here. How many unicorns? Lots of data. But the fact is, वो वाला date है ना, 16 January 2016. उस दिन ये announce हो गया कि तुम company 2 दिन में बना सकते हो. And India used to have the license Raj. मतलब कुछ नहीं होता था. I don't know if there are any government officers here or not, but really कुछ नहीं होता था. और वो really change हो गया है. You know, half the time I'm a non-believer in a lot of these. But this is a change that I've seen. This happened. Regulatory reforms happened. You know, one of the reforms that they made, that was very important for the startup culture to kind of grow and prosper in the country. They made it easier for companies to fail. You could shut down companies easier. पहले अगर तुम्हारी कंपनी बनी नहीं तो तुम्हारे गले पे टंगी रहती थी. मतलब you were just all your life working on figuring out how you can shut that. Your risk appetite went up. It became easier for people to take risks, to start new things. So while making it easy to start is important, making it easier to fail is also very important. And that's what the government did for us. Investment has become easier. I'll also tell you a personal story in investments over here. When we started ShopClues, I must have pitched to about, 500 odd investors. And, okay, I have to stay towards the middle of the stage. But 500 odd investors. And out of that, I think 2 or 3 women, that's about it. Now when I go for events, My finance minister is a woman, Ms. Sitaraman, and I meet many, many more women on VCs as well. Because it has become easier from the government side to be able to start new funds that are focused on women, start new funds that are focused on agri-tech, start new funds that are focused on defense. The government has made it easier to do that, and we've not seen this kind of a push in any of the other countries anywhere. Most countries push their startup ecosystem based on tax benefits. We've made it easier from a regulatory process, which was one of the biggest things that was holding us back. There is the Startup Learning Program, Startup India Hub, no angel tax. Angel tax was a very big problem. Some of it continues to be there, which is being some legacy impact is there that's being resolved. But hopefully that gets a lot better as well. मेरे हिसाब से तो सबसे easy था भाई, funding support for startups and innovation-focused programs for students. Have you guys seen any innovation-focused programs? How many of you have heard about the Atal Tinkering Lab? Did your schools have it? Have you actually tinkered in the lab? Yes? Somebody said yes. So I'm a mentor for a couple of these, and I think it is the ability that the Atal Tinkering Labs, the Atal Innovation Labs provide the students today at so many schools across the country is phenomenal. The change is real, the change is here for us, and a lot of innovative ideas are coming out of this. I go to schools in Delhi where I hear business ideas from kids as young as in grade 6. They talk about building, whether that is in drones, whether that's in robotics, whether that's in 3D printing. Dimag khul jata hai when you have the resources. I'll go back to the same thing. We're not a developing nation anymore. We're not a poor nation. We're a nation that is actually opening up its resources to our young, to our students. So incentives are being provided, ease of doing business, tax benefits, exit options I've already spoken about, infrastructure, the startup policy. All of these sound easy on paper, but if any of you go out and start a business, you'll realize how important all of these are, and these literally become roadblocks for us to do anything big with our life. Let's talk about incubators and accelerators. Have you applied to any of the incubators? चेक चाहिए ना तुम्हें तो जवाब देना पड़ेगा. हाँ किया था ना. तो 2011 में जब हमने शॉप क्लूज शुरू किया था, कोई इंक्यूबेटर नहीं था, कोई एक्सेलरेटर नहीं था. आज IIM बैंगलोर में एक एक्सेलरेटर है जिसमें से every year about 150 women-owned enterprises, consumer tech enterprises come out. There are multiple accelerators around the world. The government has a fund of funds that enables us to be able to fund those as well. IITs में research parks बन रहे हैं. Incubators are in schools, but they are also being sponsored by SIDBI. They are being sponsored by a lot of the government-focused initiatives. By the way, guys, please, I hope I leave here with a lot more people aspiring to be entrepreneurs. It's a lot easier in today's generation. Make the attempt. हर रोज घर जाके ना चार ideas लिखा करो जो कर सकते हो. And at the end of the month or at the end of the year, go through it and figure out which one you can work on. Because it's truly possible. Truly, truly. So when you guys are thinking of your ideas, let me talk to you a little bit about what are the biggest industries through which these ideas are coming. IT services. Do you understand IT services? Healthcare. Have hospitals become better in your lifetime? Do any of you use healthcare apps? Mindplus, great. I heard a yes here as well. 1mg, Practo, Apollo. Great. It's impacting our lives, right? Making our lives easier. Education. तुम लोग तो एकदम PW, physics वाला, hands down. कि Byju's. Khan Academy. आप लोग यहाँ पे ऐप यूज करते हैं? Agriculture. Anybody knows of an agriculture-based startup? Dehat. Which one did you say? ENAP. Animal. There you go. Professional and commercial services. So B2B services. Moglix. India Mart. Any more? Meesho nahi yaar. Meesho to hardcore B2C. Food and beverages. Zomato, Swiggy. Construction, finance, fintech, technology, hardware, renewable energy, Blue Smart. Do we have Blue Smart here in Sonipat? Delhi tak hi hai. Par acha hai na? Prefer that na over Uber, any of that? Any day. Any day, any day. This list, ignore everything. This list. These are investors. Just the VCs in our country have gone up at least 100 times over the last 14 years. People would be afraid to invest in India. Now, sometimes I feel there are more funds than founders. There are so many funds that are supporting you. Startup has become a way of life, not just something that the rich and privileged do. Because if you go and look at the life of each one of our startup founders, you'll realize that none of us came out rich and privileged. Sahil and I were talking about it earlier. When I was growing up, I would ask my parents for anything, and they'd say, "Hum Tata Birla thodi hain." But ab to aur bhi ho gaya na. You can be a Flipkart founder, you can be a Snapdeal founder, you can be a Zomato founder. Wealth is not limited to a few. If you can create it, it can be yours. I've spoken about agri-startups already. Drones. Garud. Anybody knows about drone technology? What's happening there? There you go, Idea Forge. Garud. It is phenomenal that what we are doing in the drone technology is ahead of a lot of things that are happening worldwide. Because we've been known, India also had its whole evolution. We were a country of traders, so it was assumed that any kind of a company that comes out of India is going to be the eBay of India, the Amazon of India. Now we are coming out with startups that are from India for the world. Space tech, so much happening in space tech right now. Galaxy Eye, which is a space tech startup, that has unveiled India's first high-resolution aerial drone startup. And it is one of the first of its kind in the world. When I read this, it makes me incredibly proud. It took us about 5 years to create a unicorn in India. We were the 4th unicorn in India. Now unicorns, the median age is 5.7, but I know that there are companies like Bharat Pay that have become unicorns in less than 2 to 3 years. There's another one that's one of the youngest unicorn. One more that you guys probably use. Who has credit cards here? Great job, cred. Within 2 to 3 years, they are startups. They are unicorns. और ये सब बहुत ही phenomenal change है. ये हो नहीं रहा था पहले. Today we have more than 100 unicorns in the country and about 100 more that are waiting to be unicorns. We've raised a total capital of nearly $100 billion in a country where FDI, foreign direct investment, was difficult but has changed completely. We've been able to raise $100 billion and created a combined valuation of about $350 billion. And I feel that this data is slightly dated. This number has gone up significantly. The top sector that has created value has been e-commerce, but fintech is catching up very, very soon, only because of one phenomena, which is UPI. आप सब UPI use करते हैं? That's technology. Paytm. There you go. That's life-changing. So we sometimes forget the impact that startups have on our day-to-day lives. So when I already told you that when we started Shop Clues, the question that we got was that why are you moving to India? India mein to bahut mushkil hai to build anything. And that era has passed. Now there are people who are US citizens, Americans, Israelis who come to India to do their startups. 1 out of every 10 unicorns globally have been born in India right now. And I can tell you that this number is going to go up to 50% very, very soon. Some more just data out there. One data that I'm not very pleased with, only 46% of startups have at least one woman director, but less than 4% of startup money goes to women-led startups. So less than 4% of venture capital goes to women-led startups. That number has to change, and it will, because we have incentives to be able to change that. Just a stark comparison of how the funding has changed completely. We became a unicorn the year after this. तब तक सिर्फ 5 बिलियन आया था. अब नंबर आपके सामने है कितना आ चुका है. तब हम मुश्किल से 350-400 startups थे. अब every nook and corner has a startup, and that is again, I think, just the ability to start easy and the ability to fail easy. That is pretty phenomenal. Guys, think of ideas. Become entrepreneurs. It is the best time in our country to become an entrepreneur. At your age, at my age. And this has not been true in any other part of the world. In any other part of the world. Train yourself to become a good employee, but train yourself better to become a good founder. It is not difficult, and it is not impossible. Demography of startup founders, we've already talked about the fact that we have fewer women entrepreneurs and more encouragement for women entrepreneurs to be able to do startups. And आप लोग तो यहाँ पे है ना, 20 to 25 years old. Is that right? That's your demographic? 18.2. Okay, let's add the 0.3%. Zepto, guys, kya age hai, pata hai na? There you go. So please, my job today is to leave here making sure that you all understand that being an entrepreneur is an option for you all. The country is ripe for it. Entrepreneurs literally come in all ages, all shapes and sizes. You don't have to be an engineering graduate or an MBA. You can be any of those and do something that makes an impact. The impact is not just in terms of the money that you make, but the impact is more in terms of the lives that you touch as well. Nine years, I have seen the change. For me, this is not rhetoric. This has changed my life. I'm on to my third startup in a country which has been able to implement all of this. I've spoken about nearly each one of these individually, and I'll leave this here for you to read. But any ecosystem that gets support from the government, whether that's a government that is a democracy or a government that's not a democracy, that has to sponsor, that has to prosper. Today's day and era, I think it is a time for India to shine. Truly our Amrit Kal. You guys are in a very different country that we were in when we were growing up, and it is up to you to make the most out of the opportunity. I want to wish you all good luck. I'm happy to take any questions, but please tell me how many of you will at least try to do a startup. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you.
Rishihood, what you witnessed today is truly a masterclass by somebody who is a Karta and who's done all of this. To actually hear from the horse's mouth that what has India's journey been to be the startup capital of the world. And I hope that many of you who have raised your hand right now stand and go back inspired and probably approach ma'am for your funding. We should have some pitches from Rishihood.
Yes. I am serious. So I'm going to leave my email with you. And I commit right now that I am going to fund at least 3 startups out of Rishihood. And I'll mentor you and I will support you in getting in front of the right VCs.
Can it get bigger than this? Like we say, yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai. And thanks to people like Radhika ji who are truly going to give wings to the dreams of all of you today sitting in the auditorium. So like we said, we're going to have a brief Q&A with ma'am. What is your advice to the women sitting here? You know, people who have those ideas but are afraid in some way that how do we translate our vision into reality? And also if you could personally give us some instances from your experience as a woman entrepreneur where you had to break the glass ceiling and how you did it. I think it can be very inspiring for our students here.
Yeah. I think this advice is not just for the women, but it is more relevant to the women, but for a lot of us, right, who come from smaller towns, who don't necessarily come from an IIT or in some way or the other find ourselves being held back. Don't dim your light. There are a lot of other people who will tell you that what you want to do is not possible, but you make sure that you are not that person saying that. Ambition is not a dirty word. And this is for the women especially. It's a good word. And anything is truly possible. You have to make an effort to get there. And I think make the most out of any kind of an interaction, conversation that you have or exposure that you have. And put your agenda forward. Sharmao mat yaar.
I think ma'am has very aptly set the tone for the conversation with the students. So I'm sure a bunch of you must have questions. Can we have the questions from the audience? Anybody who would like to pose a question, even the faculty here, anybody who would like to take a question? Yes, please. Second row.
Hello, ma'am. In India, 99% or more startups fail. So,
Worldwide.
yeah, I mean, in India also many startups fail. So, what's the reason for it? And if we make our own startup, so how can we avoid it? And also, how to find the idea for the startup, because that's how startups are built now. How to find that problem to solve. So, that's the question.
I'll answer the second part first, right? So the idea for a startup that you will see most of us have had who have built something has come from our day-to-day lives, has come from exposure to our day-to-day lives. Whether that is a physics wala, whether that is for shop clues, whether that is for what I'm building out at Kindlife. I could not find a single platform where I could find all better for you products, healthier products. That's why I built Kindlife. Right? Zomato was built because the founder was collecting a bunch of menu cards. Pehle wo menu card aate the na chape hue menu cards in the office, and people would come in and order from those for lunch. And he started making a folder where he would put all these menu cards. And then he realized that everybody kept coming to borrow it from him. So he scanned it and put it up on a site. And that was the genesis of Zomato. So see what are the problems that you are facing on a day-to-day basis. As a student, as a resident, are you looking for a ride to school and you can't find it? Do you need help with studying? Do you need help with shopping? Do you need help with laundry? This is where your ideas are going to come from, right? And your other part, that 99% of the startups fail. That is absolutely true. 99% of the startups fail in India, 99% of the startups fail in worldwide. That's also because the idea for it to come of time requires a lot of macro factors along with the execution factors. Most startups succeed for a single reason, that they found a product market fit. You understand what a product market fit is? That means that it's the right time for that business to prosper. Startups fail for many different reasons. They could fail because founders ke aapas mein nahi bani. They could fail because product market fit nahi mila. They could fail because unko capital nahi mila. They could also fail because the macro world becomes different for you. So failure is a part of it. You stand up and you go back and do it again. You know, in our industry, that they say that a company might fail, but an entrepreneur never fails. Because being an entrepreneur doesn't just mean what you do. It's a mindset. It's a problem-solving mindset. And you'll all have that person in your class जो सबके लिए photocopy कर लेता है, जो easy कर देता है, कुछ scan करके डाल देता है. That's an entrepreneurial mindset. That's important.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was, very relatable. I mean, the kind of examples Radhika ji gave you right now, so relatable. And I hope that lights that bulb in your mind of what, and we hope we have the next big idea sitting right here. Can we have the next question from the audience right there?
So actually, me and my team having idea of starting an healthy beverage startup, which we planned few months ago. So I don't know how to get a start. Like we did our idea pitch recently, but we don't know how to start. Like what's the start process? Can I help? Can you help with that?
What's healthy beverage for college students?
Yes, ma'am.
तुम्हारी तो audience ही यहीं बैठी है. Orders ले लो. क्या beverage है?
Actually, we planned of having a protein shakes and then having the fruit juices for college people.
How many of you are ready to subscribe? There you go. We just started your business.
Thank you, ma'am.
What's your email?
Email to Dali.
There you go. Send her an email and send her your orders, guys. तुम्हारा menu ready है?
Yes, ma'am, we are starting.
Bus, perfect. You just started.
Thank you, ma'am.
Congratulations.
What can be more remarkable than this? We have had a venture starting at a debate episode. Amazing. So we'll take another last question from the audience. Yes, right there at the end.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Satyarth. Ma'am, we have talked about the positive part of a startup, the glamorous life of a startup ecosystem, which is okay. But what are your views on the startup bubble, the hyper valuation thing, and the founders are actually running behind just chasing the valuation and making the company public? We have all seen the. Look, I don't want to give any bad comments, but
Go ahead.
But you have seen the IPO Zomato. The IPO Zomato went horrible. IPO of Paytm initial public listing went horrible. So what are your views on that? Should we just go bootstrap model, or should we just chase valuation like crazy that all are chasing? And recently we've also seen the cold part of startup system, the winter part. Layoffs were happening. So what are your views on that?
So, Satyarth, बहुत अच्छा question है. I think really this question truly deserves an applause. So, देखो जहाँ सूरज उगता है वहाँ ढलता भी है. It cannot be day all the time. The true character of an entrepreneur comes out during the bad times. We talked about this earlier when we recorded our conversation where Sahil asked me that what do I worry about the most in the ecosystem. I think I worry the most about the glamorous approach. You know, we listen to things about startup. We feel उसने $1 billion बना लिए, उसने 10 billion बना लिए. ऐसा नहीं होता है. You know, by the time the company becomes $1 billion, it has a ton of investors. The founders' shares are down to 10%, 15%. There are a lot of external factors that kind of play into it as well. At some point, the startup becomes mature as well. That means that it'll not every year will be growth oriented. You are talking about the IPOs at Zomato, Paytm. Let's talk a little bit about one of the largest IPOs that has ever happened in the ecosystem. Not in India, Amazon. जब Amazon में अगर आपने invest किया होता, 1999 में, when they went public, if you had invested $100 at that time, today you would have had over $7 million. But in 2001, that $100 would have gone down to $10. Does that mean that Amazon was a poor investment? Not necessarily, right? Because there are macroeconomic factors. Are most of you studying economics as well? Yeah. So macroeconomic factors at play as well. It is not for no business, literally no business. It's always going to be a straight line. And that's true for startups as well. Your other question about should we just build something that's bootstrapped instead of taking VC money, getting VC money or public equity money, all of that, right? The change that most of the startups aim to bring about is very difficult to bring without the kind of capital that needs to be invested in that. The leverage that capital provides you, do you understand what that means? Is unmatchable. You can always build out a lifestyle business, which is a business that is nice, profitable, continues to grow, double year on year, 20%, 40% growth year on year, and that's a great way of building a business as well. But for the kind of impact that a lot of startups go around to make, I think that is also part of 99% of the startups failing, because you are shooting for the moon. And the leverage that comes in from VC capital, from private equity capital, makes it possible for you to reach your goals sooner. But that's also the same reason why a lot of them fail. So don't be too quick to say that these are poor investments. Give them a few years. Let the power of compounding kick in. For all of you that invest in the stock market, there's a book called Psychology of Money. Must read. The power of compounding. Must read. Must understand. And that's equally important if you're building out the business as well. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much, Radhika ji. It's just been an absolute delight to hear you, and especially the kind of encouragement that you have given to the students. We need a lot more leaders like you who can truly encourage our students to think out of the box, think out of the convention, so that we have a lot more people walking the path that you have walked in life. Thank you once again for taking out the time and joining us today. So grateful.
सही समय है